Well, I've been trying to think of what I would like to share with all of you folks, because, every time we have Exploring Monastic Life, I keep tacking them off on how many of them that I've actually attended, and I've attended all of them since I've been here since 2004. And I was like, what can I share with everybody that really has had some meaning? There's been so many incredible teachings, and a lot of them come year after year, and how they go in and how I experience them and how I learn from them has been very, very different. And so it was kind of more than maybe a coincidence that Venerable talked about the advantages of keeping precepts that the Buddha taught, and also the group discussion today on about what our religious background was and what we appreciated and what our difficulties were. So one of the fundamental things that I've had Exploring Monastic Life help me deal with is to first of all recognize the huge disparity of how I was raised and how to be a human being and the why of that. And then to learn from how to be fully a whole human being according to the way that the Buddha taught, and the how and the why of that. And so today with the group discussion, I got connected once again with what were the reasons on why I was meant to keep the commandments when I was a child. There were these ones like, you keep them or else. That was a powerful one. And to see that I still have them in my mind. So even though I'm ordained and that I really hold and keep the precepts, I can see as the years go on, I have to there's subtler versions of how I hold the ones about you keep the precepts or else, that there's some sort of external somebody out there that you're trying to appease or to be good for, or that there's something inherently flawed and something inherently imperfect about me that I somehow just have to keep working on beyond hope that I'm going to be able to be okay. And that I still see this in my mind, and that when I met the Buddha Dharma, when I heard about the precepts, there was this, I think mildly I would say ambivalence, but I had this resistance to taking precepts because I had these old paradigms of the reason and the motivation for why I would be wanting to take them. And that in my religion of faith, it was never about keeping the commandments and being a good person because you wanted to bring peace to your mind, and that you wanted to bring harmony to the world, and that you wanted to be connected, and that you wanted to cultivate your good qualities. I never heard those, at least, or maybe I didn't remember them. But I have very, very strong feelings that those were not the motivations on why, as a child and as a teenager, I was to keep the commandments. And so I finally just fled from that religion because I couldn't sustain my life with those kind of motivations. And what I would do instead is that I just got a lot sneakier about not following the commandments, so that this whole thing about, being good in the front of God and being good, sort of trying to make things work, I just got a lot sneakier. I covered a lot more of my non-virtue and my misbehavior so that I could do what I wanted to do. So I ended up kind of leaving because I couldn't make peace with it. So what has been really helpful over the years with Exploring Monastic Life is that Venerable continually, and she did it yesterday, she comes back and says, when the Buddha set forth the precepts, because within the first 12 years he had an extraordinary sangha, that all he had to say to them was, guard your speech well, purify your mind, avoid all negativities of the body, so that the actions of your three doors are pure. Being able to do all of this is the path of the great sage. That was the only precept for the first 12 years of the sangha that followed the Buddha. And then all these naughty monks and nuns started showing up that he had to start setting the precepts down because he would hear about what they were doing. But what he did, which was so skillful, and what I've learned to appreciate, is that before he set the precept, he would always remind the sangha of the advantages of why to keep them. And so as I look over the list of these 10 advantages, I finally realized that that this is what my heart and mind needed for me to become really a good and kind human being, irregardless of whether I had taken the monastic vows or not, that I needed to hear somebody say, you're doing this not only to transform your mind and to cultivate your good qualities, but you're doing this for other people. You're doing this to make the world a better place. It's not just about you. So I had found these teachings very powerful on why the Buddha set them up, because when you choose to become ordained, you are volunteering, you are inviting training. You are making the strong intention that you are going to change your mind. And it's really, really hard work. And if you had the motivation that, or else, or you're trying to appease some sort of external God, it's not going to work. But if it's to cultivate harmony in the sangha, and if it's to really grow your good qualities, and to really transform society, when it comes to the hard work, you can really do it. And that's what I have found so very, very helpful when really looking at the advantages of keeping the precepts. The other one was that I've had, ever since I was a child, I've had this sense of wanting to be being part of something bigger than myself. And being part of the sangha has really made me feel that I'm part of something bigger than myself. That not only is it this beautiful 2,600-year-old lineage, but the way in which they practiced really made a huge difference in the world. And I want to get out of myself. So I wanted to go over just some of the general ideas of some of the advantages that have really touched my heart and how I've seen my mind change in relationship to living in community here at the Abbey. So with the first there's 10 of them, and they're subdivided into smaller, more detailed parts, but I'll just kind of go through them generally. So the first one I'm just going to deal with today, which is to promote harmony in the sangha. And underneath that, it has 3 little points. It's got to direct the monastics, to create peace and happiness in the sangha, and to protect the monastics. So for the first one, to direct the monastics, in regards to harmony, that one of the sort of the bottom line here at the Abbey is harmony. You know, when push comes to shove, that is really where we want to live. And that disharmony is when we stop caring about the community, when we don't serve the sangha, we don't serve the Dharma, and that semke is just serving yourself. So I've learned to understand what the basis of harmony is, and that the precepts really help to sustain that harmony. That if there's conflicts in the community, either with the Abbey guidelines or with precepts, because we're all going to be under afflictions at some time, if not of the day, of some time of the week, is that can't be hanging out in the community for a long period of time, because we live so close together that it's going to affect the community's mind. And because we have the precepts as sort of our common shared value, we really support each other to work on the conflicts, work on the challenges, work on the misunderstandings. Not that we're like in each other's faces, but we realize that that's a really vulnerable place when there's disharmony in the community. That somebody isn't really taking the precepts to heart or the guidelines to heart, that it's endangering the harmony of the community. And as a result, as the years have gone on, I've seen my mind get into a sense of saying, the way you're thinking right now and the way you're acting right now, semke, is causing a disturbance in the community. And you've either got to ask for help or you've got to change it yourself. Because this is a value that I have learned to treasure. And I've been in this community when it hasn't been very harmonious for long periods of time, and it's a very, very disturbing, sad place. But in the past few years, as more of the community has taken ordination, and we've taken full ordination, this little switch of when things get a little rough, the turn happens a whole lot faster. And if it doesn't happen between the individuals that are having the conflict, the community and Venerable, we come in to support and say, how can we support you to make a wiser decision here? And so the harmony that is so important to promote the peace and the happiness of this community has become so precious to me. I mean, coming from a disharmonious family, coming from running away from conflicts, I've really seen it as being extremely powerful. And that we can keep the harmony despite the fact that all of us are very different. I mean, we come in here with a whole bunch of conditionings, a whole bunch of predispositions, a whole bunch of personality quirks and idiosyncrasies. But because we're tracking we're traveling in the same direction. There's no confusion of which direction we're supposed to be going in. And in that foundation of the precepts, we're extremely unique on how we share them. We're extremely unique on how we integrate them and how we live them in our own hearts and minds. And that's the thing that I've really come to also appreciate, is that the precepts, my fear of losing freedom when I ordained was very, very big. And now that I have lived in the precepts, I've understood that what I thought was freedom was imprisonment. When I was in the lay world, my freedom was the freedom to become impulsive, my freedom to go for what I wanted whenever I wanted, my freedom to disregard anybody's feelings, my freedom to just kind of waste resources and get in my car whenever I darn well pleased. My whole sense of freedom was misconstrued. Now with the precepts, because I've got some foundation on what is helpful and how to serve the sangha and the Dharma, it's like my mind has so much less confusion. It doesn't have this impulsiveness. It doesn't have this sort of wanting to distract itself as strongly as it used to. And I find that as a kind of freedom that I never thought that I was really going to have. You know, that the dissatisfactoriness that I had of lay life, that I always thought I needed the freedom to go and get what I wanted when I wanted, that wasn't freedom. That I'm understanding what true freedom is by holding and keeping the precepts. And so I wanted to really just share, this is kind of the first piece, is this whole individuality. You can be an individual, you can keep the precepts, and you can live in community at the same time. And they are not in contradiction. But the precepts are the piece that really makes that true for me. And so I wanted to share how I've had to recreate the reasons for keeping precepts. I had to reconfigure them. But the Buddha has taught very clearly on the preciousness and the joy of keeping them. And over the years, I've been able to really see what that joy is about. You know, and I just wanted to share that it's a work in progress. I've still got some subtle stuff going on about Creator, God, and authority figures, but you know, I'm working on it. So I wanted to share. That's the first, which is to promote harmony in the sangha through directing the monastics, for bringing peace and happiness, and for protecting their minds. And the precepts really do that.